Now, Prue, let's talk about your role as Shadow Education Minister, because the numbers are in and they're not good about the New South Wales school results. What's happened?
Well, across the country, results are out tonight. The standards are pretty bad across the board, but New South Wales now, it looks like in some areas, including science and literacy, we are a full academic year and a half behind where we were in the year 2000.
Wow.
So, I mean, not everyone obviously is in agreement that that's a disaster. And you've got to question, like, what is actually, you know, what's going wrong here? There's a lot of money being spent on education. There's billions of dollars, you know, and Gladys Berejiklian in this state, in New South Wales, you know, talks about it as her #1 priority, but he says it's going to be a real crisis.
Well, it's this thing where, I mean, we've had the conversation about money, right? We had Gonski 1, Gonski 2. Money has been coming in. More money than ever before has gone into the system. Clearly, there are other things that are the results that are happening here, right? And now it can either be the way it's being taught, what's being taught, the power of the teacher, why do the kids not sort of soak it up the way that they used to? To me, I don't think we ever actually have that chat, because it feels like, well, you can't take on the teachers' union, or the only response is, well, you cut $1 and, well, I'm going to promise to spend $2. But the results are exactly the same every time, flat or worse. And for 10 years, we've lived in the more money way of doing this.
Yeah, I think that's a really, you know, that sort of argument is a really sort of, it's not a fair sort of looking at the whole of the education system. And, you know, the teachers' union would be the first, the teachers would be the first to say, part of the problem is that all the pressure that is on teachers, you know, like they'll say to me, we want to be teachers in the classroom educating our children, but they're forced into being administrators and all this other stuff, and that's taking them away from educating our children. There's obviously something much bigger going on. There's lots of money. Whether it's being spent in the right areas and lifting the right kids up is the question. You know, government, I think, has to take a lot of that control back, because, you know, it's taxpayers' money, and you're talking about the only thing really at a state level that's, you know, is a bigger budget in terms of education is something like health. You know, so we're really looking down the barrel of a severely disadvantaged generation if we don't fix this.
Yeah, I mean, to me, David, you know, we've had the money chat and we've done the money way of doing it for 10 years. The results are terrible. We've got to keep the money flowing, sure, but something's going wrong here, but either no one's willing to engage with it, or because it's so multifaceted, where if a federal government says something and it's Team Blue, then automatically Team Red fights it. If it's a federal government that says something, then state governments arc up. Conversely, if it's a Labor government that doesn't want to engage or doesn't want to go against the teachers' union, well then there's just so many places where this conversation, rather than all of us agreeing, the evidence is in, the science is in, and the science is showing that our numbers are going backwards. How do we fix it?
Yeah, a lot of well-meaning people doing a lot of wheel spinning, and that is the truth, and it has been for a long time. And look, we have this perverse sense in our mind that the only way to fix a problem is to throw dollars at it. Now, you only have to look at the outcomes we've achieved for Indigenous Australia to know that money is not the answer. More money has not fixed the problem that we've seen in health and education in Indigenous communities, and the same applies to our education system. Now, that doesn't give people and governments the ability to say, well, we're going to cut funding, quite on the contrary. But when I see politician after politician standing up and saying, we are investing a record amount of insert eye-watering, silly figure that nobody quite quantifies here, and then somehow that's a justification that I'm doing a great job as a minister. Well, no, it's not. It should be about an outcome. What value am I getting from that investment? What KPI have I set for teachers and students and everyone to come on that journey? And until we start having that conversation, we will continue to fall behind. And if you have a look at these numbers to see how far behind we have slipped behind the likes of China and Singapore in our region, these are the kids that our kids will be competing against. There should be alarm bells ringing at every kitchen table and every parliament in the country this evening.
Yeah, exactly. But instead, there's all of these little off-ramps, and we'll go into all of them, which is don't blame me, don't blame you. If you did this, 5 years ago you did this, 16 years ago you did that. I mean, fair income. Like, you would think that there's the ability to get all of the relevant ministers, and dare I even say shadow ministers, into the room and actually start to talk about this. I mean, we talk about, the need for war cabinets on this, that and the other. I'm not suggesting we need to go to full war cabinet about the education system, but what's it going to take? Well, that's it. I mean, every year we're just going to go, geez, isn't it terrible? And then there are those idiots who turn around and say, well, just get rid of the test. As if the test is the problem, not the results. It's got nothing to do with the test. It's got nothing to do with the test. The test in itself is flawed, but it's got nothing to do with the test. Like, think about that. We are 20 years behind. How is that acceptable? Like, people watching this should be up in arms about what is happening to our children.
Well,
and look, if this sort of stuff bores you, I apologise, but I've got a little girl who's literally going into kindy next year.
Yeah.
So I plan to be here for at least 13 more years, and that'll mean 13 years of being very aware of the system.
Yeah.
And I want her to have the best opportunity. That means I, as a parent, and of course, more importantly, a mum who's a far better parent than I, has to be invested in those little kids as they go through. But equally so, if there's a flaw in the system, if there's a glitch in the system, let's change the glitch in the system.
Yep.
Anyway, I look forward to, all current and future education ministers who'll be hearing from me endlessly on all of this, holding up letters and what about this and what about that.
Good.
Anyway, and then I'll get in trouble from the missus for talking about it on the telly. Oh, you can't win, can you? All right, love you, Shani.